Hello and welcome to the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. I'm Stephanie Gaines-Bryant. We have two guests today. Our guests are Christine and Raphael Quinones. And we're talking about the relief efforts in Puerto Rico. The couple, the two of you, and welcome.
Thank you.
You are from Bowie.
Yes.
But you have gone back several times to help the people of Puerto Rico. So let's begin talking about that. Raphael, you've been back how many times?
4 times.
Okay, and Christine?
Twice.
Since the storm.
Since the storm, yes.
And the storm took place in?
September 20th. And I went in October, about October 11th. I went, it was 2 weeks after the storm that I went.
And the reason we're doing this show is to emphasize the fact that, okay, it's not in the headlines anymore. You don't see headlines on Puerto Rico relief efforts, but things are still dire there.
Yes, very much so.
What is it like now? What is the name of your hometown?
Jabucoa.
What is it like in Jabucoa?
Well, still, as of last week, 60% are still without power. Communications are spotty still. Water is spotty also. Some places you get good water, some places you don't get good water, and some places you don't get water at all, depending on where you are.
And with the electricity, is it spotty? Is it sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't, or is it constantly? Is it once you have it, you're good to go?
The 40% that have power, it's 1 day off, maybe 2 days off. 1 day off or 2 days off, 2 days on, and then 3 days off. And so it comes and goes, and sometimes what you get is a brownout, which is half power, and that's worse for the appliances. That'll kill the appliances.
And also food.
Yes.
It's hard to buy food when you don't know whether the refrigeration is going to be on or off that day.
You got to buy for the day, or for a day or 2 days at the most, because you don't know.
Now, what have you two been doing as far as helping? Because the water situation is one of the main situations. What's the situation with that? You get water once a day. How does that work?
Well, in Cieba, what they were doing was that a water truck would come by and ring its bell. And the citizens would come, or the people would come out and get the water that they needed for the day. Unfortunately, if you didn't hear the bell or you weren't there that day, you didn't get water. So what we're trying to do is, what we're doing now is we're giving him a cistern, 1,100 gallons, where the truck can come in and fill the cistern, and the people can come in and draw water when they need it.
Instead of having to be there at a particular time.
Correct, right.
And how big is this cistern?
1,100 gallons.
And so you guys had to put it together? How does that work?
Yes. We bought the cistern and we had it delivered, and they had to build a pad for it and put it on the pad, and then with faucets on it so that they can get it.
Now, have you been working with any organizations?
Yes, Global Solace, they're a godsend. They're a organization that serves all of the people all over the world, but they went into Puerto Rico with us, and what they're doing is they're doing solar projects to put power into areas where there is no power right now. And if a hurricane comes, these are solar projects, so if a hurricane comes or something happens, it won't matter, because right after the hurricane they'll have their power because they can serve as backup powers.
Do you believe that that's the future?
I believe that that's the future of Puerto Rico. They have to go solar. They got abundant sun, so why not use it?
So we were just talking about getting the basics, getting food and water. What have the efforts been to rebuild?
It is so devastated. You wouldn't believe how bad this it is. First of all, when I first went there, it looked like somebody had taken a big machine and just taken everything right out. The city hall, gone. Police station, gone. Many of the houses, gone. I used to use a tavern on the side of the road small business as my markers. I'm getting close to the house, no longer there.
So it's almost impossible for people to rebuild, rebuilding their businesses, rebuilding the tourism industry.
It's hard. It's hard. We go to this little fish market down there. It's a little fish restaurant. It's beautiful, tremendous food. It's the best restaurant you'll go to for fish. Well, this guy lost everything, and he rebuilt back up. I mean, he's got his business going. He's living, his house is gone, so he's living with his in-laws. But he was good enough to go ahead, and he had the gumption to go ahead and rebuild his business to a certain point. He's hoping to get more tourists, more people coming in. But right now, with the tourist industry the way it is there, it's a crapshoot.
Now, your community, that was where the eye of the storm
Yes.
hit.
Yes.
So can you tell us where that is opposed to the bigger cities? San
Okay,
Juan, for example.
It's directly south of San Juan. It's the southeast corner of the island. It's where the trade winds come in all the time. It's always windy there, but you get the trade winds coming in. But it's the closest big city is Caguas. And as the crow flies, it's really not that far. It's about maybe 15, 20 miles. But to get to it, it's a lot of roads you have to go through, a lot of mountain roads. You got to, either way, you know, to get to it. It's about 40 minutes.
And rebuilding is going to be difficult anyway. You've got a lot of people who've already fled the
Yes.
island.
Yes, yes.
Who's left?
The poor, the elderly, people who can't afford to move. Those who have decided that we're going to stay here and we're going to build. There's a lot of those.
But when you think about people leaving, what has that done to things, for example, like the school system?
The school system, it's crazy. At the beginning of last year, I was told that the local school in Jabucoa, where I grew up, it would have been my local school. It started off with 400 students. They're down to less than 100. Wow. It's big.
Wow. So people who, if they had the opportunity to leave,
Left.
they left.
They left. And, you know, and leaving, you're taking the young, the smart, you know, that's the future.
What do you feel about the U.S. response?
Non-existent. Non-existent.
Supposedly, federal dollars have been allocated to address the issues.
As far as I can see, very little of that has gone to the communities. I think a lot of that is in the, maybe it's in the Puerto Rican government, but I don't know that either, you know. So I have no idea where this supposed funding that they're supposed to get is.
So what you're saying is, when you walk the streets of your community, it is still, what you see is still devastation.
Except for one thing, the mayor of Yabucoa, Raphael Quinones.
The mayor is very, very active in working with the people. He has aged so much in the last 7 months, 8 months, whatever. He's like a different person. He works so hard trying to help. He was out there distributing food and water immediately after the storm. He's met with Raphael several times about what projects he wants them to do, where he wants them to put in the solar, where it'll help the most people. He really does care. We're not sure what happens with the higher-ups, what's going on. You hear things, you see things, but you don't really, you're not in the middle of that. What we do know is what's happening in Yabucoa. They don't seem to be getting the money or the help that they need to rebuild.
Now, you all have some future projects that you all will be working on as well. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well, the next one I'm really excited about. There's a nursing home in Yabucoa down in the city. Our home is up in the mountains. Our family is in the mountains. But this is down in the city. Most of the people are bedridden, the elderly and sick. And right now they've been using generators, but they can only use the generator for 12 hours at a time. Then they have to rest it for 12 hours. So from 8 in the morning till 8 at night, they have lights, they have fans, but then at 8 o'clock at night, it goes dark because they have to let the generator rest, I guess. I don't really understand all the mechanics. So what we're doing is putting in solar power, so they'll be able to run the fans, TVs, and lights, you know, all day and all evening. So I'm really excited about that one, especially now. In the winter, it probably wasn't quite as bad, but now it's getting very, very hot there.
What are the seasons like there in the summertime or as we approach spring here?
It's not as drastic as the change here, but in the summer, in the evenings, it's cool enough that, you know, you could sit, maybe you'd need a sweater on or something. It's never cold. But in the summer, it's hot. But you'd think even in Maryland, here in Bowie, how hot it is.
Yes.
It's hotter there. And these poor people, you know, with not even a fan. So I'm excited. We have the funding, or we're very close to the funding for that project. And then the one after that will be the school. The school also, they were letting the children out at, I think it's noon, because they'd get enough sunlight in the morning. And then once the sun was overhead and to the other side, it was too dark in the classrooms for them.
So your next project is to make sure that you provide what's needed as far as solar,
Yes.
so that they can do a full day of school. Because at this point, they can't possibly be getting the adequate education if they're just kind of doing half days.
Right. And the lunches, most of the children there are on free lunch, or I believe all the children are on the free lunch program. However, there was no refrigeration, so they were not getting any kind of meat or produce or anything that had to be kept. They were having canned food every day for lunch, rice and beans and cans. And that's probably what they were getting at home too.
Tell us, we talked a little bit earlier about the water efforts. And what did you call the thing that you guys?
Cistern.
Okay, about putting the cistern in place. When people don't get clean water on a regular basis, what are they doing?
You got to boil, possibly boil. Some of the people were getting it from the roof. They get a thing and get the rainwater, and then they take that and they boil it, or they purify it somehow, and then they use that. That's a lot of work. Washing was a real chore because you had to go down to the river, take your clothes to the river, get your old wash boards out, and wash that way. So.
Now, Christine, we talked earlier, and you were talking about how some people were getting sick and getting rashes.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Well, at least one of his cousins, who we see a lot there, she had running water, and she said she couldn't drink it. She knew she couldn't drink it because it was discolored. She tried washing clothes. Her clothes got dirtier than when they went in. And then she thought, well, she could take a shower. She got a rash. Now, I believe what she's doing is going to her daughter's house whenever she needs to bathe, and her daughter takes her laundry. It's not an easy situation.
Absolutely not. You talked about the fact that 40% of the people have power. What percent have running water?
I think a lot of them do have running water, but the problem is the usage. Some of it you can't use. I mean, you'll have have water coming through the pipes, but like she said, you get rash, or it's dirty. I mean, you look at it, it's brown coming in, So you got to run the water, and hopefully it'll get better. Sometimes it doesn't.
And over the last 9 months, has it been?
I think
It's close.
7. Well, what happened is Hurricane Irma came in and knocked out all the power, and some of the people got power on for one day when Maria hit. So I believe it's been 7 or 8 months now.
And we're coming upon hurricane season again.
June 1st.
How are you guys preparing?
Well, what we're trying to do is, if we can get the projects in, that'll give them backup power. Like I said, we were doing the old folks' home. That one there, they'll have backup power. If the hurricane hits and the power goes out, they'll still have the backup power there. The school, We're trying to get them power also so they can do their classrooms, possibly a refrigerator, computers. We're going to try to get them computers also and a hookup so that they could have communications. And they're going to turn it into a community center so that people can come in and get food, make it a distribution center. The same thing with the library is the fourth project. And it's the public library police station. What they did was the mayor's city hall was destroyed, and so was the police station. So what they did was they took the library and using part of it as a police station. So if we give them the solar power, they'll have backup power to do all, to run the police station and the library, and they're going to hook up the computers with satellite link so that they can at least have communications coming out of the island of it, So.
Do you think it can all be done?
Yes.
Before?
If we get the funding, yes. If we don't get the funding, no. That's the problem, funding.
Because at this point, surviving another hurricane sounds like that would be...
A lot of people are saying, I'm not going through that again, so.
Now, tell us, you were born and raised there.
Yes. No, I wasn't raised there. I was born there. I lived there till I was 7. And then I was raised in Cleveland.
Okay. But you still feel the desire, that connection, that need to go back?
Oh, yes, yes. Well, the school that in the area where I'm at, my grandfather donated the land for the school.
Do you still have lots of relatives
Yes. Yes. If I go to the mountain up there, most of them are cousins.
Is it hard to get to that region if
No.
you guys are up in the mountains?
No. What the mayor, the mayor's from that same part that I'm from.
Okay.
His father was my sister's godfather.
Okay.
So what they did was the mayor realized right away, right after the storm, that unless they cleared the roads, when the help came, they wouldn't be able to get through. So he organized teams to clear the roads so that they wouldn't have any excuse of not coming in and helping the communities. Well, they cleared the roads and nobody showed up.
Well, how long was it before you received some sort of help?
Month was December. It was after December when they started receiving something.
So that months passed.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. I try not to get political, but I have to ask you, what do you feel about the response? Because people don't realize you are Puerto Rico, or Puerto Ricans are Americans.
They're American citizens.
We're not talking about Uzbekistan.
Right. Right.
What do you think about the government response to Puerto Rico?
I think it's dismal at best. I mean, they really fell on their sword. I have no respect for the federal government at this point. I mean, Trump showed up and he was throwing towels at the richest part of Puerto Rico, which wasn't going to lose anything anyway. They have everything backed up over there anyway. So he comes in throwing towels here, clean up. I mean, and the people of Puerto Rico are really ticked off about that, and that's about the extent of the help that they got.
Or the blame game, blaming you all. Well, why don't you pick yourselves up?
How can you do that? How can you do that? If he can tell them how and give us help in doing that, they'd be doing that in a minute.
If this situation, you said you're from Ohio, if a similar situation took place in Ohio, there would have been a much better response.
Oh, big response. Yes, yes.
So we're dealing with Americans.
Yes.
And Americans can't help other Americans?
That's, and the thing is, Puerto Rico had, in 2016, they had what they call, I forget what the name that they use. Well, they voted for statehood. This is the second time they voted for statehood. And here we are, nothing yet.
And you wonder when the situation comes up again, when the question of statehood comes up again, what will the result be? And no matter what, you are Americans
Yes,
and
we
should
are
be
Americans,
treated
right.
as Americans.
Exactly, right.
And you've been back there several times.
Mm-hmm.
Do you all have children?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a connection here, which is what I said at the beginning of the program, which is very admirable, the fact that you felt it in your heart that you needed to go back. We've been hearing from people who are stars here, who were successful here, but other than those stars, it's like people are screaming and no one's being heard.
Right.
Well, immediately, or a week or so, probably 2 weeks after the storm, when we finally were able to hear from one of the cousins, because they couldn't reach us, they had no communication. One of them called and said the situation was bad. She said, the stores are closed, we're running out of food. They were rationing their own food for their family, and that's when Raphael decided he needed to go down there. So he went with a bunch of rice and beans and chicken and tuna, whatever he could take, to try to help them out, to get them on their feet. And the part that was so heartwarming, he would bring food to someone, and it wasn't much, it was a little box, and they'd say, well, I'm gonna give some of this to the lady down the street because she has nothing. And so the little bit they have, they shared. Most of them are helping each other with whatever they can. But we need to be helping them more.
Yes.
To help themselves.
What was your first response when you saw what the hometown looked like? The first time you went back?
I cried. It was awful.
And to know that this is your family, this is your home.
As you can see, I still get.
I've never seen this much emotion from him since the storm has hit. It's been really hard.
Now, I know the efforts that you all put in when you get there, but it takes a lot of work to even put stuff like that together, making phone calls, making contacts.
Yes.
How do you have to prepare to go and put the cisterns in, or help out with the old folks' home, help out with solar paneling?
It's
That's been difficult
Yeah.
too. That's been really difficult. We had started working with a group in University Park that organized themselves with Solar Power for Puerto Rico. And they're the ones that put us in touch with Global Solace. And Global Solace, they've done this stuff all over the world. They've gone to Africa and Haiti and countless places. And they've had so much trouble getting the equipment there. I don't understand all the politics of it. I believe a lot of the delays in getting the equipment over there is because of the Jones Act. And it's trouble at port, and then you have to pay a tax when it gets there. So that's been hard. They order the stuff, they have no problem ordering it, but actually getting it over there has been difficult.
So it's taken work.
yeah.
To get, and you two are retired?
Yes.
So this has been your retirement job.
Yes.
And so when are you guys going back? Because as we discussed, in June, hurricane season starts again. When is your next?
Our next project starts probably the end of May, early June. We're going to do the old folks' home. But it's.
And how long do you think that's going to take? Is it going to be a long project, or?
Well, if we get everything there, it'll take about 4 days. We
And
can
you
put up
know-
a system in about 4 days.
Wow. You think about people, for example, who have diseases where they have to be on machines all the time, whether it's a breathing machine or if you're on dialysis and you have to receive dialysis every day. You can't possibly be getting what you need.
No.
If things are as dire as I absolutely believe they are, the people who do need these medical services, especially people, senior citizens who are in these homes, I know there's treatments that they're needing that they might not be getting the full extent of.
Right,
Right,
right. or it's very difficult to get. If you don't have power in your house and you need oxygen, you have a concentrator, maybe you have to go live with someone else. It's just made a lot of people's lives more difficult than what they need to be.
And Global Solace is also trying to hire some local people there and train them in doing the solar, so that later on it's a possibility, you know, they can grow an industry over there. So they're hiring people and training them on how to do this stuff, which is really good.
Well, in wrapping up the show, what do you think, what's the future of your land, of Puerto Rico? What do you think's, we've got to end it on a positive note.
I think that they'll make it through. You know, they're resilient. They are tough people, and they're helping each other, which is, you know, what they're working together. I think that they can make it through with some help. You know.
And do you think that the people who have left to go to Florida or New York, wherever they may have relatives, do you think you'll get that back? Maybe you won't get the entire population back, but do you think people will come back?
I think so. And I think when they come back, they're going to be a little more educated. So, you know, they'll understand more, and they'll come back and they'll say, okay, let's see what we can do. And if the tourist industry still comes back, that's another thing that would help them a lot.
Now, the tourist industry as we know it is absolutely not back.
Actually, the ships have started to come back to Puerto Rico. But once you get there, you know, all the places that were so lush and beautiful, we don't know.
But that's coming
but
back.
That's coming back. That's coming back.
In fact, after this, one of the problems people had too, and especially in the country, a lot of them lived a lot off the land. They had banana trees and plantains and whatnot. All the vegetation got wiped out.
Okay.
All of it got wiped out. So as a positive note, when we were there last time, Ralph saw his first bunch of bananas growing on a tree since the storm.
Very good, very good. It's been a pleasure. And I want to make sure that we keep up with what you guys are doing. So please keep me aware of your travels and the projects and the success of your projects.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've been talking to Raphael and Christine Quinones. You were telling me how people mispronounce and everything. So I was trying to make sure we got it right. Thank you so much for joining us. You've been watching the Sisters for Fitness Wellness Show. We've been talking about relief efforts in Puerto Rico. Have a great day.